As you can see, we're like slightly above center line. So I want to make sure that we're at center line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower this just a little bit more. And so I know that I'm like roughly at center line. And we're sticking out a little bit far right here, but that's just kind of the way the shape is. So I want to try to avoid kind of working on this part right here, because what will happen is if the part grabs the tool, you can see there's that big gap right there, so it's going to pull the tool in. So you want to try to have like as close to the gap as possible. Like if we really wanted to, we can use like a smaller one. This is actually meant for a smaller lathe, so we'd have to put a bushing in there. That's a metal lathe project to hold that in place. But in this case, we can work right here and probably around here. So we're just gonna make sure it's nice and clear. We'll start it up, and then I'm just gonna hold it. I'm putting a lot of pressure on here, and then my hands right here, my thumbs right here, and we're just gonna real slowly kind of just work it back and forth like this. So you can see I made the diameter smaller, so now you can see there's a big gap right there. So I want to try to adjust my tool rest so it's like a little bit closer. That way, again, it can't get stuck in there like that. So yeah, that's a round nose. Say you're using say you want to rough something with the scraper. We have like really big ones, and we have some like small ones. I don't know how sharp this is, but I can try this one. This one right here, this one you kind of use up on edge. So I'm just going to run it back and forth like this. And that's going to smooth out your part. And you can also put the tool on top. And if you see that it's bouncing, like you know your part's like out of concentric. The smoother it's running, like you see, like that part I just turned down, it's really smooth. And if I put it right here, it's bouncing, so I know I'm not round right there. So that's really handy if you're starting with a square and you're going around, because you know, without stopping the lathe, you know you have to keep going. So that's a gouge. Let's see. Here's the V groove. So say like you don't want to make a groove in the part. Again, I'm just keep it against the tool rest at all times, and I'm just going to real lightly kind of push in like this. And this tool is really dull, I can tell. But as you can see, that made like a little V groove right there. So that's what that's for. We'll probably sharpen that one a little bit. Let's see. Skew chisel. So this is handy for making round parts. So I can actually work this back and forth. I can flip this over and then work this in here like that. And I can flip this around right here. And if you do a really light touch, it's just like you're just scraping the wood off, so you end up with a really like super smooth like finish. So as you can see with this, you can make like a little ball like that. So again, really handy for like spindles or chair legs or stool legs. So I like making like faceplate turnings, which we'll cover, because those give you a lot more freedom. It's really hard to make the same part more than once. So like if you use this whole lot, you're gonna get a lot better and you'll be able to duplicate parts no problem. But don't get frustrated if you can't make the same part like twice, because you'll catch on to it really fast the more you use it. So that covers basic spindle turning. So take it off the lathe. We can just loosen this right here, and then we'll back this off like that, and then this will move out of the way, and then this just comes off the lathe like that. One thing to keep in mind, like we talked about with the metal lathe, don't just assume you can put the spur center back in there and end up with like the same the same, basically have it concentric, it's always going to be a little bit off. So if you put this thing back on there, you're going to have to return it a little bit. One thing I forgot to mention is you can sand the wood here, right here on the lathe. We just want to make sure when you sand the wood, make sure you take this out, because you're going to be sanding and your fingers are going to be really close to this. So you don't want this in there, otherwise your fingers can get, like, you know, pinched right here. So you can sand while this thing's on here, just make sure you take the tool rest out. The next thing we're going to talk about is faceplate turning, or we can also use a chuck, which I'll show you guys. So that's these right here. These are what they call faceplates. This is actually an old chuck, but you can see we have different size faceplates for different applications. So this would be for like a small bowl or like a plate or something like that. As you can see, there's like screw holes in here, so you can screw that directly to your work. What I've seen a lot of people do is, if you don't want screw holes in your work, what we can actually do is take your piece of wood, we'll put down some wood glue, then we'll put down a piece of paper, and we'll put down more wood glue, and then we'll put a scrap piece of wood on top. And we'll let that dry really, really good, and then we can put that on a lathe and then turn it. And then when you want to take it off the faceplate, all we have to do is put a chisel there, and that little paper provides a break, so it just falls right off. So it's strong enough that you can turn, but we're able to get that off without a lot of trouble, and you don't end up with any screw holes in your material. Because again, when you're using a faceplate, you have to have some way of attaching it to your work. So an example would be like this little cup right here. This pencil cup is actually a tree branch that we just found on campus. The way this worked was, again, I glued a piece of wood to the bottom with a piece of paper separating it, and then I screwed this faceplate into here like this, and I was able to work on the outside diameter as well as carve out the inside diameter to hold all this stuff. So basically this is going to thread onto here. Same thing with our small lathe, it's just going to thread onto here. So to get the spur center out, we'll take our little knockout tool here, and again, you don't want your hand on the spur because you might get yourself. So I usually just hold the outside and kind of just give it a little tap, and then this comes out of there. And then once that comes out of there, you'll be able to thread this. Just imagine a piece of wood's on there. You'll be able to thread this onto there like that. And now you're supported from right here, so you can work on the outside or the inside of the part. So that's what they call faceplate turning. The other thing we have for this lathe is actually a chuck. This is a chuck, just like on the metal lathe, and this will thread onto either one, onto the spindle. And then we just have a chuck key that fits in there. And as you can see, this will expand like this, inside or from the outside. So like say you have a chunk of wood and you don't want to use a faceplate, you can take a Forstner bit and drill a hole in the bottom of your piece of wood, and then that will slide over here, and just pretend my hands are a piece of wood, and I can actually expand that into the wood, and that's going to grab the material and hold it for you, so that you can work on turning either the outside or the inside. So you can do that. You can also you can start between centers with your work, and then cut a tenon on one end, and then that will slip inside the chuck. So again, just imagine like right here is a chunk of wood. It could actually slide inside of there, like in here, and then you could tighten down on it like this. So you can do either internal, external grabbing with the chuck. We also have a little screw center. So with this one, I don't remember the exact diameter, but we can drill a hole in the end of your work and screw this piece in like that, and then the chuck will actually grip that screw center like that. So that has a lot of holding power, real handy if you can deal with like a hole in the bottom of your part.